In this video, we'll go through exam questions that cover the level 2 criteria, identify and know the equivalence between fractions, decimals and percentages. You can locate the questions on the mathsmath.com website under level 2. The questions are from different exam boards. We'll start with the non-calculator questions and then we'll move to the calculator questions. Here's the first one. Write 8% as a decimal. So percent, that works in a very similar way to pence. They out of 100, they both begin with P. So 8 pence, imagine. How do you write that with pound notation? You'd write it as 0.08. So 8 pence out of 100. 8% is also out of 100. So that's how you'd write 8% as a decimal. 0.08. It's also like dividing 8 by 100. What is 2/3 as a percentage? Give your answer rounded to 2 decimal places. So 2/3, you should imagine 3 equal parts, and you're taking 2 out of the 3. So 100%, the whole thing, if you divide into 3 equal parts, what percentage is each part worth? It will be 33.333 and so on, each of these. But we're looking at 2 of them. So that's going to be 66.666 and so on. We've got to give our answer to 2 decimal places. So there is 1, 2. This is the cutoff point. We need to look at that to determine whether we keep this digit as 6 or we go up to 7. And if it's 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9, we go up. In this case, it's a 6, so that means we go up. So this is going to be 66.67%. What is 52% as a fraction in its lowest terms? 52%. Percent means out of 100, per 100. So 52 out of 100. So we've got to give the answer in its lowest terms. So we've got to simplify. Can we divide both numbers by one number? Can we divide both numbers by 2? Yes, we can. Dividing 52 by 2 gives us 26. Dividing 100 by 2 gives us 50. Can we go any further? Yes, we can. We can divide both numbers by 2 again. So that gives us 13, and that gives us 25. Can we divide this again? No, we can't. Trying to divide by 2 will give us a decimal, dividing by 3, by 5, by 7, and so on, would give us decimal numbers. So the only number we can divide 13 by is 13 or 1, because that is what we call a prime number. So if I try to divide 25 by 13, it's going to give me a decimal. For this reason, this is the fraction in its lowest term. We can't go any further. So I'm going to write 13/25. Which one of the following lists is in decreasing order? Decreasing means going down. They both begin with D, so going down in value. From the highest to the lowest, in other words. So looking at these, we've got fraction, decimal, fraction, decimal. So we could convert them all into decimals or fractions, whichever you prefer. I'm going to do both, just so that you can see, but obviously you don't need to do both in the exam. So let's convert all of these into fractions. We've got the first one, that is 1/5, and we've got 0.05. Again, remember that reference to pence. That is the same as 5 pence. So that is 5 out of 100, because there are 100 pence in a pound. So we've got 5 hundredths there. We've got 1/5 here. We've got 17 fiftieths in here. Now we have 15 pence. So 0.15 is like 15 out of 100. So 2 of these are out of 100. We've got this one, which is out of 50. So how do we bring that to be out of 100? We double the 50 to make 100. We double the 17 as well to make 34. How do we bring this to be out of 100? So that is 20 times larger. The 5 times 20 gives us 100. So 1 times 20 gives us 20. We need to multiply both the top number and the bottom number by the same number in order to keep the fraction the same. So now we have all 4 of them out of 100. And we can easily compare. The highest of them all is 34 hundredths. That was this fraction, 17 fiftieths. So where is that the first in these rows? That is in row D. Let's have a look. What's the next one? That is 20 hundredths. So the fraction 1/5. Yes, that is here as well. And the third should be 15 out of 100, which is the decimal 0.15. And then finally we have 5 out of 100, which is decimal 0.05. So that matches what we have. So ticking this would be more than enough. But I promised at the start that I would go through the decimal method as well. So we've got 1/5 in here, 1 out of 5. That is 0.2 or 0.20, however you prefer. What is 1/5 of a pound? So 1 pound divided by 5, that gives you 20 pence. Then we have 0.05 in the first row, 17 fiftieths, which again we doubled both numbers to get 34 hundredths, so 34 out of 100, and that is 0.34, just like 34 pence. And then finally we have 0.15. Can we compare them now? Which one is the highest? Yes, 0.34 is the highest, which matches our fraction, 17 fiftieths. And then after that would be 0.20, which is the fraction 1/5. Then you'd have 0.15 and then 0.05. What is 0.825 as a percentage? 0.825 0.25. Again, making that reference to money. This is going to be 82.5%. It's like having 82.5 pence. It's also like multiplying 0.825 by 100. And you could do that if you want to. Which of these numbers is equivalent to 73%? Again, 73% is like 73 pence, so you'd write it as 0.73. That's this one here, so 0.73 is the answer. What is 3/5 as a decimal? Circle your answer. There are different ways you can work this out. Again, if you link it to money, what is 1/5 of a pound? It's like splitting a pound into 5 pieces. That would be 20 pence each of them. And 3 of them, 3 pieces, will be 60 pence. 60 pence we write as 0.60 or just 0.6 because they both tell us there are no pennies in there, just the tens of pence. So they have the same value, and that would be 0.6. You could also divide 3 by 5. You could also scale up the fraction. So if you double, this will be 6/10. If you multiply by 10, this is going to be 60 out of 100, which is 60 pence, again 0.6 in this case. You don't need to show the working out because this is only a 1-mark question, but it's good practice to show the working out, even if you do it in your head. Complete the table to show equivalent fractions, decimals and percentages. So 3/5, the one that we've actually just gone through, as a decimal that was 0.6. As a percentage, again, because it was 60 pence, it's going to be 60%. We've got 11/40. As a percentage, that is 27.5%. Again, imagine if you had 27.5 pence. You'd write it as 0.275. Or you could think of dividing this 27.5 by 100, so you're moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. Looking at the final one, we've got 95%, which is 0.95, and it's also 95 out of 100. Now you could leave it like that, or you could simplify if you like, and we can divide both numbers by 5. So 100 divided by 5 gives us 20, because 20 lots of 5 make 100. And then for 95, that is 1 less than 20, that is 19. So 19/20 is the same fraction as 95/100. But again, the question didn't ask us to write the simplest version, so we can leave it like that. Now we've got calculator questions, so we can use a calculator from this point onwards. Write 21.9% as a decimal. So 21.9% means out of 100. And we know that this fraction line here means division, so it's 21.9 divided by 100. That is 0.2 0.19. Dave is a salesman. He is paid a basic salary plus a bonus based on the sales he makes. Last year, Dave's bonus was 3/8 of his salary. Write 3/8 as a decimal and as a percentage. Again, 3/8, that is 3 divided by 8, which is 0.375 as a decimal. Now, as a percentage, you could do 37.5, so moving the decimal point 2 places to the right, thinking of 37.5 pence. But you could also just keep the number there as it is, times by 100, and that gives us 37.5%. Why do we multiply by 100? Because decimals are out of 1, whereas percentages are out of 100. It's like scaling them up in a way. The proportion of commuters who cycle to work in the UK is 0.06. Write 0.06 as a fraction, a percentage. Again, that is easy. It's 6 pence. So 6 pence, that is 6 out of 100. As a percentage, that is 6%. So you don't really need a calculator in this case. The average UK gas bill is 3.875 times more than the average UK electricity bill. Write 3.875 as an improper fraction. So that 3 point, that tells me that whole number is 3. So it's 3 and a fraction. And then we have 875 out of 1,000. We have 3 digits, 875. That's why it's out of 1,000. So 1, 2, 3 zeros. If it was 2 digits, then it would be out of 100. Write 3.875 as a percentage. So because it's more than 1, we know this is going to be more than 100%. So it's going to be 300 and something percent. So what is that though? Again, we said earlier that percentages are out of 100, whereas decimals are out of 1. So just by multiplying the decimal by 100 will give us the percentage. So 3.875 times 100 gives us 387.5%. So if you had £3.87 and some sort of imaginary half a penny as well, that would be 387.5 pence. Linking it to money. The theatre needs new stage curtains. Jan has been asked to order the fabric for the new curtains. The total width of fabric needs to be 3 1/5 times the width of the stage front. Write 3 1/5 as a decimal number. So if you couldn't make sense of the context of the stage and the curtains, don't worry. All you have to do here is write 3 1/5 as a decimal number. So we've got that whole number, which is 3 in front. So the answer is going to be 3 point something. What is 1/5 as a decimal? It's the same as asking what is 1 divided by 5. And hopefully you should know what that looks like. I'm just going to show it here first before I use the calculator, because this is an important point. So between 0 and 1, so we've split this into 5 equal parts. 1/5, so that is 1 out of the 5. This would be 0.2. You should know this. This would be 0.4, that is 2/5, and then 3/5 will be 0.6, 4/5 0.8, 5/5 would be 1 or a whole, which is also 100%. But also I can just do 1 divided by 5 in the calculator. It gives me 0.2. So 0.2, add to that the 3 that we have, that's going to become 3.2. What is 3/87 as a decimal correct to 3 decimal places? Again, calculator out. So 3 divided by 87 gives us this long number, 0.03448. We don't need to write the rest. We've got to round the answer to 3 decimal places, so that's 1, 2, 3 places after the decimal point. So to decide, we look at the digit on the right, that's a 4. So if it's a 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, we're gonna keep this as it is. So 0.034 is the answer. Which of the following fractions is equivalent to 40%? So 40%, that is 40 out of 100. Percent, again, means out of 100. So I'll write it here. Do we have 40 out of 100 here? 40 hundredths? No, we don't. Is that the same as 40 out of 1,000? No, it's not. Is that the same as 120 out of 300? Let's see what's happened. The 100 has become 300, so multiplied by 3. If I multiply 40 by 3, I get 120. So these are equal. What about 4/20? So dividing 100 by 5 gives us 20. If I divide 40 by 5, that's going to give me 8. So 4/20 isn't equivalent to 40%. And then we have 100 out of 40, which isn't the same as 40 out of 100. That is more than 200%. So I'm going to write 120 300ths. Which of the following values is the largest? Write the answer in the box below. So looking at these numbers, 850 out of 1,000. Then we have 2 1/9. 7/3. 2 and 7/550ths. 850 out of 1,000 is the smallest of them all because it's a proper fraction. 850 is smaller than 1,000, so this is less than 1 or less than 100%. whereas the other three, they're greater than 1. So like this one is 2 and something, this is 2 and something, this one here is 2 and something as well, because 2 lots of 3 fit into 7. So we only need to focus on these 3. Let's use a calculator to convert these into decimals. So 2 and 1/9, that is 2 point something as a decimal. What is that something? That is 1/9, which is 1 divided by 9 as a decimal. So that's 0.111. So the 1 is recurring. If we add to that the 2 that we have, the whole number, that is 2.111. What is 7/3 as a decimal? So that is 7 divided by 3, which is 2.333, and so on. What is 2 and 7/550? So that is 2 point something, that is 7 divided by 550. So let's add to that the 2, the whole number, that gives us 2.0127. So which out of these is the largest? All 3 start with 2, so we can't differentiate for that part. So we need to look at the first digit after the decimal point. That's a 1, that's a 3, and that's a 0. And the 3 is the largest. So that means that 7/3 is the largest. And we don't even need to look at the other digits, because that first digit after the decimal point, that has the highest value of all the digits after the decimal point. So 7/3 is the highest of them. Which of these fractions and mixed numbers is equivalent to 130%? So 130%, that is 130 out of 100% means out of 100. So which of these is the same, or equivalent, I should be saying? Let's look at them in turn. So 33 out of 100, that is not the same as 130 out of 100. This is much less. Looking at the second one, 1 and 1/3. Okay, 1, that is good, but 1/3, that is 33.3. So this would be 133.33 out of 100. So it's definitely not the same. It's greater than what we have. Then we have 33.3 out of 100, which is less than 100%. Again, that's just a third. 13 out of 100. So if I divided 130 by 10, I'd get 13. And if I divided 100 by 10, I'd get 10. So these two are equivalent to each other. And 330 out of 300, let's have a look. If I multiplied 100 by 3, I'd get 300. And if I multiplied 130 by 3, I'm going to get 390, which isn't 330. So the only correct option is 13/10. Complete the table to show equivalent fractions, decimals, and percentages. So 3/8, that is 3 divided by 8, which is 0.375 as a decimal, and also 37.5% as a percentage. Now we've got as a decimal 0.15, which is 15%. So again, 15%, that is like 15 pence. And it's out of 100. So 15 hundredths, that's the fraction that is equivalent to 0.15 or 15%. Now you could simplify that further. You could divide by 5, and it's going to give us 3 divided by 5 gives us 20. So 3/20ths would be the simplified version of the fraction, but we're not asked that in the question, so we can leave it out and just keep the 15 hundredths. And this is the end of the questions.